Okay, imagine this for a second. You fly all the way to Kenya, right? You buy a treadmill, and then you somehow haul it deep into this remote village way up in the hills.
Yeah, it sounds completely bonkers, doesn't it?
Totally bizarre. Why would anyone, do that?
Well, that image, that feeling of absurdity, that's kind of the perfect starting point for our deep dive today.
Right. We're digging into exercise, but maybe not the way you usually think about it.
Exactly. Not as this, like, modern moral duty or some awful chore we have to do.
We're looking at it through the lens of human evolution. It gets pretty fascinating and honestly kind of counterintuitive.
We want to unpack why most of us, well, we just don't want to exercise sometimes, and why that feeling is actually completely normal.
Yeah, and how movement and even rest has shaped us over millennia. Our mission here is basically to cut through all the noise, all the conflicting advice.
And give you a shortcut to really understanding this stuff, because it affects, well, all of us.
So maybe we should start with some basics, like definitions.
Good idea, because words get thrown around. So physical activity, that's basically any movement your muscles make that uses energy. Super broad.
Okay, they're just like getting up, walking around.
Yep. Then you've got exercise. That's more specific. It's physical activity you choose to do.
Right. It's planned, structured.
Structured, repetitive, yeah. And you're doing it specifically to get fitter or healthier, like going for a run, lifting weights, that sort of thing.
And you found that interesting historical tidbit about the word exercise.
Oh, yeah. The adjective. Before it meant, physically worked out exercise used to mean being vexed or worried or anxious.
Huh. Which, let's be honest, sometimes feels pretty accurate when you're dreading a workout.
It really can. And that leads us straight into the big paradox we're tackling.
Which is?
If exercise is so obviously, undeniably good for us, it helps with almost everything.
Right, like a miracle cure sometimes.
Exactly. Then why is it so incredibly hard for so many people to actually do it consistently?
That's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's what we want to unravel.
A lot of people have this idea, this sort of born to exercise myth.
Yeah, picturing our hunter-gatherer ancestors as these, like, super athletes constantly on the move.
You hear it from the folks our sources call exorcists.
Exorcists!
Yeah, the ones who preach exercise like it's medicine, a magic pill. It becomes a moral thing. No pain, no gain.
Right, that whole mentality. But the actual anthropology, the studies of groups like the Hadza, it paints a different picture, doesn't it?
It really does. They're hunter-gatherers, and yeah, they're active, but not nearly as much as the myths suggest.
How active are we talking?
We're talking maybe a few hours of moderate or vigorous activity a day. For women, it averages maybe 5 miles of walking, men around 10.
Okay, so that's definitely more active than, say, the average American or European, like 12 times more, the sources say.
Oh, absolutely more active than us today. But it's not like they're doing nonstop, back-breaking labor from sunrise to sunset. That's the key point.
And here's where it gets really interesting, that comparison with apes.
Right. Because compared to our closest relatives, chimps and gorillas, hunter-gatherers were actually quite active. Apes are, well, kind of the original couch potatoes.
Curiously.
Yeah, they spend huge amounts of time just resting, digesting. They're built for energy conservation in their environment. They might only move 2 or 3 miles a day.
Wow. So humans evolved to be more active than apes.
Definitely. Our lifestyle required it. Hunting, gathering, it takes work.
But still less active than, modern fitness gurus might have us believe.
Precisely. The fundamental human instinct, baked in over millions of years, is conserve energy whenever you possibly can. Don't waste it unless you absolutely have to.
And that instinct, that drive to conserve energy, it doesn't just make us want to skip the gym, right? It affects how we think about just sitting.
Oh, completely. We hear all the... Okay.
Yeah, I read one that said every hour of sitting costs you 2 hours of life. Seems a bit extreme.
It's definitely attention-grabbing. But evolution tells a slightly different story. Sitting is ancient. It's natural.
Our ancestors sat all the time.
Absolutely. The Hadza, even Neanderthals, they sat for hours. They just didn't have ergonomic office chairs. They were squatting, kneeling, sitting on the ground, resting.
Okay, so the crucial point here isn't sitting itself.
No. It's the way we sit now. It's inactive, sustained sitting, especially in chairs, often with backrests, which are pretty recent inventions, historically speaking, and mostly for the well-off.
Right, and it's that kind of sitting combined with just not moving much the rest of the day. That's the real issue.
Exactly. Sitting quietly in a comfy chair, it barely taxes your muscles, burns maybe, 8 to 10 calories more per hour than just standing.
Which is basically nothing over a whole day.
Pretty much negligible. The real danger comes because that lack of muscle activity contributes to weight gain, especially that dangerous fat around your organs.
Visceral fat.
Right. And it leads to this low-grade chronic inflammation all through your body. Think of it like a cold that never quite goes away, just simmering, damaging tissues slowly.
In your arteries, liver, brain, everywhere.
Yep. And the sources even mentioned fidgeting. Just moving around a bit in your seat can actually help burn a few more calories, improve blood flow, and maybe offset some of that risk.
So connecting back to our ancestors, their sitting wasn't usually this inert, supported posture for hours on end.
No way. They were squatting, kneeling, getting up and down, probably doing tasks while sitting on the ground, chatting, working with their hands. Much more dynamic.
More like active sitting. And it wasn't replacing several hours of walking or gathering either.
Absolutely. It was rest, but integrated into a generally active life.
Okay, so this whole idea of rethinking rest applies to sleep too, right?
Yeah.
We get hammered with this you need 8 hours rule.
Oh, yeah. The magic 8-hour. It causes so much anxiety for people. I remember struggling with it myself, staying up late studying, then pop wide awake at 6 a.m., worrying about being tired all day.
That anxiety loop. And again, looking at it evolutionarily or anthropologically. Does the evidence really support this strict 8-hour mandate?
Not really, no. There's no solid evidence that people in non-industrial societies consistently sleep more than we do.
Huh.
In fact, average sleep duration in a place like the US and Europe hasn't actually dropped much, if at all, in the last 50 years. The sleep crisis might be a bit overblown or at least more complicated.
So if it's not necessarily 8 hours, what is normal sleep? It seems like our modern habits are really specific.
Very culturally specific. Think about it. We crave dark, quiet, temperature-controlled rooms, often sleeping alone or just with a partner.
Right. Sensory deprivation almost.
Compare that to foragers sleeping in groups, maybe around a fire with all the sounds of people nearby, animals in the distance, changing light. That kind of bedlam, as the source puts it, was normal.
And how does activity fit into sleep?
Well, think about the fight or flight system. Acute stress, it's designed to keep you awake. Makes sense if there's danger.
You need to be alert.
Exactly. But regular, moderate physical activity, especially done earlier in the day, helps calm that system down. It promotes the rest and digest response, which is crucial for deep restorative sleep.
So being inactive could actually make sleep worse.
It can definitely contribute to insomnia. You get this vicious cycle. You're stressed, you don't sleep well, you're tired, so you move less, which makes the stress and sleep problems worse.
Oh, yeah.
So bottom line, for both sitting and sleeping, they're normal, necessary states of rest.
Yeah.
But our modern environment, our cultural norms, they drastically change the costs and benefits.
And all the fear-mongering around them. Well, that can be pretty profitable for some industries, can't it?
No doubt about it.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. Let's reevaluate what we think humans are actually capable of physically, starting with speed.
Right. We tend to think of ourselves as pretty slow compared to the animal kingdom.
Yeah, you see footage of cheetahs, or even just like a deer bounding away, or those Pamplona bulls. You wouldn't stand a chance.
Totally. Usain Bolt, the fastest human ever recorded, hit about 23.3 miles per hour, which sounds fast.
Until you compare him to almost any four-legged animal.
Exactly. He could outrun, maybe a skunk, a rhino perhaps, but most quadrupeds, even things like wild goats, would leave him eating dust.
And there are anatomical reasons for that, right?
Oh, yeah. Our legs are kind of stubby compared to our body size. Our ankles and feet are relatively fat and heavy. Our spines are stiff.
Unlike those super flexible spines on cheetahs or greyhounds.
Right, that act like springs. Plus, we don't have claws or hooves for good traction. We're just not built for drag racing.
Which leads to this common idea, myth, #5 in the source material, that humans trade speed for endurance. You're either a sprinter or a marathoner.
Yeah, and while that might be true at the absolute elite level, comparing Bolt to Eliud Kipchoge for most normal humans, that trade-off isn't so rigid.
So average people can actually be decent at both.
Absolutely. Most of us can improve both our speed and our endurance. It's not strictly one or the other.
How does that work, energy-wise?
Well, we have different systems. There's the ATP creatine phosphate system for super short bursts, like less than 10 seconds, pure power.
Okay.
Then there's glycolysis, which feels about a 30-second sprint. That's when you feel the burn, the lactate and hydrogen ions building up.
Uh-huh.
And then for longer distances, we rely on aerobic respiration using oxygen. That's limited by your VO2 max, basically how much oxygen your body can effectively use.
And how much of that is genetic? Are some people just born fast or born with endurance?
Genes play a role for sure. Athletic talent seems to be about half genetic, half environment and training. But there isn't one single speed gene or endurance gene. It's complex.
So great athletes are both born and made, as they say.
Pretty much. But the good news for the rest of us is that training really works. Think about high-intensity interval training, HIIT.
Right, those short bursts of all-out effort, then rest.
Exactly. It's incredibly effective at boosting both your sprint capacity and your aerobic endurance. It kind of busts that myth that you have to be either a tortoise or a hare.
Our ancestors weren't training for the Olympics, but they needed that versatility, didn't they? Good at lots of different physical challenges.
Precisely. Their everyday lives demanded it.
Okay, what about strength? There's a huge focus on strength today. CrossFit, bodybuilding, this idea that being super strong is somehow primal.
It's definitely a modern obsession, but again, looking at hunter-gatherers, the Hadza, the San, others, they're strong, no doubt.
From their daily work, right? Carrying things, digging.
Yeah, carrying water, firewood, kids, digging for tubers, climbing trees, lots of functional body weight type strength. But they aren't super strong like a modern powerlifter or bodybuilder.
But they maintain it better as they age.
That's a key point. Because they stay active throughout their lives, they don't experience the same sharp decline in strength, sarcopenia, that we often see in sedentary populations.
So why wouldn't evolution favor getting, maximally strong? Why just strong enough?
Trade-offs again. Building and maintaining huge amounts of muscle is incredibly expensive, calorically speaking.
Eats up too much energy.
Exactly. Energy our ancestors needed for finding food, reproduction, immune function, everything else. Being just strong enough for the tasks they actually needed to do was the more efficient, evolutionarily sound strategy.
Plus, excessive muscle might actually reduce power.
It can, yeah. Power is about producing force quickly. Sometimes huge muscles can slow that down. Think explosive movements needed for hunting or defense.
And that image we have of, brawny cavemen or
Yeah.
super strong apes, that's mostly exaggerated too.
Largely, yes. Chimpanzee strength is impressive, pound for pound, but often overstated in pop culture. And Neanderthals, while definitely robust and muscular, were still well within the range of modern human variation.
Some of those early scientific drawings didn't help, making them look hunched and brutish.
Exactly. Those reconstructions were often biased. The reality is, modern weight training allows us to achieve levels of muscle mass that were neither typical nor particularly advantageous for our ancestors.
Okay, let's shift to fighting in sports. There's this narrative that humans traded muscle for brains, became less aggressive physically, and invented sports as an outlet.
There's some truth there, but it's more nuanced, like everything else.
What's the key distinction?
It's about the type of aggression. Our sources distinguish between reactive aggression, that's the impulsive hair-trigger violence you might see more in chimps,
Okay.
and proactive aggression, that's planned, controlled, calculated aggression. Humans actually have relatively low reactive aggression compared to chimps, but potentially very high proactive aggression.
Interesting. So sports might have evolved partly to manage that proactive kind.
That's one compelling idea. Think about ancient competitions like the funeral games Achilles holds in the Iliad, wrestling, chariot racing.
Yeah.
They weren't just fun in games. They likely served to channel that competitive, aggressive energy in a controlled way, teach impulse control, build skills useful for hunting or warfare, and maybe even foster cooperation within the group by competing against outsiders or honoring the dead together.
And our development of weapons also played a role. Less reliance on pure physical strength in a fight.
Absolutely. As soon as you have tools, and especially projectile weapons, spears, arrows, even just thrown rocks, the game changes. Our unique ability to throw objects with speed and accuracy is a huge human adaptation. It meant brute strength and raw speed became less decisive in conflict.
Okay, this is all fascinating context. Let's bring it back to aging and endurance. We often accept that slowing down is just normal as you get older.
Right. The "it's normal to be less active" myth, but evolution might suggest otherwise.
You mentioned the grandmother hypothesis earlier.
Yeah, the idea that human females live long past reproductive age, partly because older women help their daughters and grandchildren survive, increasing the transmission of their own genes.
Makes sense.
Building on that, there's the active grandparent hypothesis. This suggests that longevity wasn't just about being there, but about actively contributing. Natural selection might have favored individuals who remained physically capable enough in later life to help forage, carry things, and care for kin.
So staying active wasn't just beneficial, it was potentially necessary for this evolutionary strategy to work.
That's the idea. Which leads nicely into the costly repair hypothesis.
Okay, with that.
It suggests that our bodies have all these mechanisms to repair the minor damage that happens every day, little bits of wear and tear at the cellular level.
Right.
But activating these repair systems costs energy. So evolution favored bodies that only turned on the full repair response when necessary. And physical activity acts as that crucial signal.
Like, okay, this body's being used, it's valuable, let's invest energy in fixing it up.
Exactly. Exercise triggers processes that fight cellular damage, oxidation, inflammation, and can even strengthen existing structures. The source uses a great analogy. It's like scrubbing your kitchen floor after spilling something, but you scrub so well the whole floor ends up cleaner than it was before the spill.
That's called allostasis, right? Adapting and becoming stronger through stress.
Precisely. So it's not really anti-aging, but anti-senescence, slowing down the rate at which age-related diseases develop, extending your health span.
So the paradox is, even though energy was scarce historically, using some of it for physical activity was the best way to signal the body to invest in long-term maintenance and delay decline.
That seems to be the evolutionary logic, yes.
Which brings us squarely to exercise as medicine, especially thinking about modern diseases. The mismatch idea.
Right. So many chronic diseases today, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, even some cancers and dementia are likely mismatch conditions. Our bodies, evolved for one environment, are struggling to cope with our modern, sedentary, high-calorie world.
And exercise helps because it pushes our physiology back towards a state it's better adapted for.
In many cases, yes. Let's take obesity and type 2 diabetes. We talked about inactive sitting promoting organ fat and inflammation, which leads to insulin resistance. Your cells stop responding properly to insulin, so sugar builds up in your blood.
Right.
Exercise directly combats that. It makes your muscles hungry for sugar, pulling out of the blood. It improves insulin sensitivity. It basically helps unclog the drain, metabolically speaking.
And more seems to be better here.
The evidence suggests yes. Going beyond the standard recommendation of 150 minutes per week seems to have greater benefits for reversing insulin resistance.
Okay, what about heart disease?
Similar story. Aerobic exercise, and also HIIT, strengthens the heart muscle itself, makes blood vessels more flexible, lowers blood pressure, improves cholesterol profiles, and crucially reduces that chronic inflammation we talked about.
Even for those extreme exercisers like marathon runners, who sometimes show weird results on scans, like high calcium scores in their arteries.
Yeah, the CAC score thing. It's complex, and researchers are still figuring it out, but the current thinking is that the type of plaque might be different, more stable in athletes, and overwhelmingly, these highly active people live longer and have far less actual heart disease than sedentary people. The benefits seem to vastly outweigh any potential risks shown on those scans.
Gotcha. What about immunity? We hear conflicting things, like exercise can make you sick.
That's usually about overdoing it. Really intense, prolonged exercise can temporarily suppress parts of the immune system right afterwards, leaving you maybe slightly more vulnerable for a short window.
The open window theory.
Right. But regular, moderate physical activity does the opposite. It strengthens your immune system overall, makes you less likely to catch respiratory infections like colds and flu, and helps you recover faster if you do.
Okay. And musculoskeletal health. Things like muscles wasting away, bones getting brittle, joints aching.
Huge benefits there. Exercise, especially resistance training, is the #1 way to combat sarcopenia, that age-related muscle loss. And weight-bearing exercise is crucial for maintaining bone density and preventing osteoporosis.
Even for older adults.
Absolutely, it's never too late to start and see benefits. And osteoarthritis, the joint wear and tear arthritis. The old idea was that exercise, especially running, caused it.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But the evidence now strongly suggests that's wrong. Regular, moderate activity seems to be protective against osteoarthritis, possibly by reducing inflammation and strengthening the muscles around the joints. In fact, osteoarthritis is more common now in our largely sedentary society than it likely was for our active ancestors.
Wow, that's a major reversal. What about cancer and brain health?
Physical activity is linked to a lower risk of several major cancers, including breast and colon cancer.
How does that work?
Multiple ways. It might help regulate hormones involved in cancer growth, it reduces inflammation, and it seems to boost the immune system's ability to find and destroy cancerous cells, particularly through cells called natural killer, or NK cells. Exercise basically diverts energy away from potentially cancerous cells and towards healthy functions.
And the brain.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's, depression, anxiety.
Alzheimer's is another potential mismatch disease. It's about 20 times more common in industrial societies than in non-industrial ones. The exact reasons aren't clear, but inactivity is a major risk factor. Some link it to the hygiene hypothesis, too. Maybe our understimulated immune systems play a role.
And depression and anxiety are definitely linked to inactivity. Rates are skyrocketing, especially among young people.
Tragically, yes. And the evidence for exercise helping is incredibly strong. It literally changes your brain chemistry, boosting feel-good chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and even endocannabinoids.
The body's natural cannabis.
Kind of, yeah. It also improves electrical activity in the brain, promotes the growth of new brain cells, especially in memory areas, partly by increasing a protein called BDNF.
So putting it all together, exercise isn't magic, but it's incredibly powerful medicine.
It really is, often as effective as medications or therapy for mild to moderate depression and anxiety, yet it's so often overlooked or underutilized in mental health care.
Okay, so after covering all these benefits, all this evolutionary context, we circle back to the beginning. The struggle is real.
Absolutely, it bears repeating. Our bodies are fundamentally wired to avoid unnecessary exertion. Conserving energy was paramount for survival and reproduction for millions of years. Fighting that deep instinct is genuinely hard.
Which might explain why just telling people exercise is good for you often isn't enough.
The way we approach it now, medicalizing it, commercializing it.
Turning it into an industry.
Yeah.
Gym memberships, fancy gear, workout apps. It often fails because it doesn't tap into those deeper motivations. It doesn't make exercise feel necessary or fun in an intrinsic way. Our source author really dislikes treadmills, calls them boring, frustrating symbols of this. Yeah, it's a very different approach from, say, historical figures like Dudley Sargent at Harvard who integrated physical training, or even modern companies trying things like that Sports Hour in Sweden.
Making it social, making it part of the routine, not just another task to squeeze in. And get this, the brain's reward system, the dopamine, the endorphins, they seem to kick in more strongly for people who are already active.
Seriously. So it's harder to get the runner's high if you're just starting out.
It seems that way, which creates this barrier, right? The people who need the motivation the most might feel the rewards the least initially. It's a tough cycle to break.
What about making it compulsory? We do that sometimes.
We do. For soldiers, for kids in school, or at least we used to more. Those are generally accepted exceptions because fitness is seen as integral to their role or development.
But mandatory PE in schools and universities has really declined, hasn't it? Even at places like Harvard, it's not required anymore.
Right. Which raises a kind of awkward question.
Yeah.
If we all agree exercise is so vital for physical and mental health throughout life, why do we make it mandatory for kids but treat it as completely optional, even trivial sometimes, for adults?
It's a strange disconnect.
It really is. So maybe the path forward isn't more shaming or blaming people for not exercising enough.
Yeah, that clearly doesn't work well.
Maybe it's about figuring out how to help each other choose activity by making it feel more like it might have for our ancestors.
How so?
Making it necessary, or at least feel necessary. Making it fun, genuinely enjoyable. Making it social, doing it with others. Making it emotionally rewarding, not just a grind.
So, the simple takeaway, boiling down everything we've discussed from these sources.
It's pretty straightforward, really. Make physical activity necessary and enjoyable. Aim for mostly cardio, but mix in some strength training. Remember that some activity is always better than none. And crucially, keep it up as you get older. Don't buy into the myth that you're supposed to stop.
We've covered a lot. From why treadmills in remote villages seem absurd, to why that absurdity actually reveals something deep about us. Our bodies are wired for conserving energy.
Which makes deliberate exercise a very modern, very peculiar thing for humans to do.
But we've also seen just how incredibly adaptable our bodies are, how they respond to challenge, with repair, resilience becoming stronger.
Which leaves us with maybe a final thought to chew on. What if the best kind of physical activity, the most effective workout, isn't necessarily the one that pushes you to your absolute limit.
What if it's the one that actually makes you want to do it again tomorrow?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The one that taps into those older, deeper evolutionary drives for play, for social connection, for feeling competent and rewarded, rather than just relying on willpower to overcome our instinct to rest.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given us a fresh perspective on something we thought we knew inside out. Hopefully it leaves you, our listener, not just better informed, but maybe a little exercised in that old sense of the word thinking, questioning, and perhaps inspired to rethink your own relationship with moving and resting.